Good evening and welcome to tonight's Voter Education Forum. My name is Joe Osland, and I guess I'll be the moderator tonight. For the first part of the evening, at least, our candidates portion, and then we'll take a break and come back with a forum on the voter propositions. And that'll be hosted by Ginger Polson from the Mendocino Women's Political Coalition. Just as a bit of introduction, I grew up here in town. I graduated from Willits High, went off to college, graduated from college, came back here, and now I'm trying to break into television. So hopefully if tonight goes well enough, I'll get that local access cable late night show that I've been pushing for. Our purpose tonight in this first portion of the evening is to provide an opportunity for members of the community to hear from the candidates running for 3rd District Supervisor, Holly Madrigal and Tom Woodhouse, as well as to hear from the candidate for County Superintendent of Schools, Warren Galletti. First, we would ask that the candidates introduce themselves and give a brief opening statement, not to exceed 3 minutes. After that, I'll take a series of prepared questions. Following these prepared questions, we'll take some questions from the audience. We'd ask anybody asking a question to keep their question asking to under 30 seconds so that we can try and get to everybody. And then finally, for the questions tonight, for the prepared questions, we'll have 30 seconds for the candidates to respond. For the questions from the audience, we'll give them a bit longer. And to keep it all organized, we've got our timekeeper down here. So just watch out. So starting with Tom.
My name's Tom Woodhouse, and I never thought I'd be sitting up here running for this office. I've lived in Willits for 40 years and have enjoyed the beauty of this area and growing up and getting to know so many people here. While we grew up, we raised our children, Noel and Whitney, and that did actually help me grow up a lot. Being in business, I was learning to survive financially and run a budget, and it was very difficult. I have helped hundreds and hundreds of people through their most frightening part of their life, buying houses and property and being right on the edge financially. So without knowing it, I learned quite a bit from just observing other people and asking questions and befriending these people, and now I'm surrounded by them as our neighbors. So it's been a real privilege, and it's made me a more conservative person. I've been a lifelong registered Democrat since I was young, voted in every election that I could, and always enjoyed that privilege of voting. And I'm concerned now that fewer people are involved in voting, and it's not something we are going to have just because we live here or we're nice people. We actually need to get involved, participate, make some choices, and not be too frustrated when you don't get what you want. Often it seems like I never got what I wanted when I voted. But watching government and observing just the missed opportunities and the difficult time it is for the public to get involved and insert their ideas in government really frustrated me and then inspired me that we can do it different. We have to keep renewing government and being part of it ourselves. So it takes a lot of patience and a lot of courage from you and the people running. I'm excited to offer my skills for this job, and I think they're a perfect set for the challenges we have. We need critical thinking, and I'm anxious to start the job. Thank you.
So hi, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. Many of you know me already. I'm Holly Madrigal, and I, like Joe, grew up here, went to school here, moved away, got my education in business management and economics from UCSC, and then came home. And when my husband and I first moved back, we really decided that, that we wanted to dig in and participate and be part of the solutions that when you are growing up here, you tend to gripe about a little bit, I'll put it that way. But for the next few minutes, I would like to speak briefly about the next 5 years. I want you all to imagine with me, if you will, 5 years from now, looking back on what I've been able to accomplish as your next 3rd District Supervisor. The things that I am working on and are important to me, just a few of them: a thriving local economy. I'm a big supporter of local business, and I've done a great deal of work here locally to support our business community. And there's a number of changes coming up right now that are immediately impacting our business community, such as the Willits bypass, for example. So making sure that our business community has support at the county level is incredibly important to me. So I'm going to be doing a lot of work on that. Effective broadband access is a key component of that necessity. Also, I feel like we can become known for our restoration economy with, thriving salmon streams and sustainable forestry. We have a lot of assets here locally that we can better promote. Healthy families first. Our county's young people have the gift of growing up here in this local landscape, but too many don't have access to, frankly, public property or public recreation opportunities. I really want to support the health and well-being of our community. And smart water policy. This is something that's been top on my list, and I have to stop because apparently that was 3 minutes.
So our first question is what experience do you have that qualifies you to be a good 3rd District Supervisor?
As I said, I've been in business for 40 years here, and I continue to work full-time even now. So you can imagine doing the campaigning we're doing and working full-time is quite demanding. But it's been a privilege, and I've enjoyed this. The decisions that I've helped people make in their life have really put me on the edge of being completely honest and using spotless integrity and confidentiality in our dealings together because it's a small town. So I've learned very finely tuned negotiating skills. Every single deal that I've ever closed has fallen apart a few times before it closed. And that's when you calm down and listen to people and make deals that other people don't make. So making a living over 40 years consistently is a very demanding thing in this town. And I want to apply that ability to the supervisor's job. I'm a very skilled problem solver because I like to call myself determined. Other people have said I'm stubborn, but I'm determined. I have overwhelming support for my campaign throughout the county from a lot of leaders, and I'm just overwhelmed by the support that I've been given. We were interviewed by the Farm Bureau and the Builders Exchange and the North Bay Realtors Association and all these groups and all the people, Sheriff Allman and Johnny Pinches, people have just flocked to me and given me their support, and it's been amazing. But I feel very responsible to campaign hard the whole time, so I'm working and campaigning too. So we have about 700 people on our heavy supporters list, and I'm really privileged to be sitting here and represent those people. Thank you.
By electing me, you will not lose one single day due to inexperience. You can be confident in me that I know what I'm doing. And by serving on the Willits City Council just about 10 years, which is hard to believe, by serving on the Willits City Council, I've learned a lot of hard lessons as far as governing and being responsive and accessible to the public. I've learned about things that I never thought I would have a need to. Labor negotiating, for example. The county has 7 bargaining units that all need to have contracts negotiated, and I know how to do that. I know more about, sewer and different municipal service reviews. It's really been an incredibly broad-based education, and what it has taught me is that you really need to be able to work well with other people to make sure that you can't just take what you want to do and run with it. You need to be able to work with a board, often a board that has differing viewpoints from you, and you need to be able to accurately communicate how you want to move forward and how you're going to do that. And I've been very effective at that. And it's been a hard-learned lessons. I know that I have made decisions on the board in my 10 years that I'm sure have, not pleased one person or another. But if I wasn't doing that, I probably wouldn't be doing my job. I take a position, I carefully review both sides of every issue, and then do my best to represent you fully. So that's what I'm going to continue to do at the board.
So the last couple days of rain notwithstanding, water is a very critical issue in our county. And so I'd ask you, what can the Board of Supervisors do to actually develop and implement a comprehensive water strategy for the county?
This has been a big subject of mine that I've been able to lead on, and we here at the City of Willits we're kind of put forward as the banner bearers on response to a local drought issue. City Manager Adrian Moore and myself were invited to Sacramento to speak at a Senate hearing on our response to drought, and I've been continuing to work with our local drought ad hoc at the county level with Supervisors Brown and Hamburg to come up with solutions. And the main thing is not to forget about this when it rains. I mean, I was actually woken up at 3 a.m. by the deluge last night, which was wonderful. But the key is to not forget about this resource, today, now that we've gotten 0.3 of an inch, I think is what I got. There's a number of things that we could be doing at the county, and I have to say the county doesn't really have a comprehensive water policy at this point. They had a water agency, it was defunded. So that's one of the things I'm interested in moving forward, because there's a lot of areas where we could be incentivizing building practices that encourage water conservation. A lot can be done at the county building department for that. I also am very supportive of Congressman Huffman is working on some legislation called the Forecast Act that would allow better management of Coyote Dam. Right now, that water storage facility is basically the primary purpose of that is flood control, not for water storage. And so because of that, it's handled in a very, in a way that was, I believe they said invented in the 50s, where, at a certain date on the calendar, they start letting water over the dam. And most recently, and back in 2012, I think it was, they let 25,000 acre feet over the reservoir because it said so in this binder. So this act will allow us to use science in making those decisions.
It's inaccurate to say that Willits has been a leader in dealing with water problems. We have not. Staff has dealt with it quite a bit, and now that the drought's hit, we're trying our best to catch up and making some moves. But we're making a tremendous number of expensive mistakes and not doing a good job of it. There's a new county state law that the governor signed that gives us a rare opportunity at the county to study our aquifers. And if we're smart enough, the Board of Supervisors will be in charge of this. They will put together the water agency from the districts we have and organize a study of the aquifer to see what the levels are and the recharge rates and gather the scientific information you need to have an intelligent water plan, starting with the Ukiah Basin. It won't be on private property owners' little wells at this point. So it's a real test of the supervisors to see if they will stand up. I intend to stand up and lead that because water has been a problem for at least the last 10 or 20 years. We haven't been able to grow because we don't have water. So it's not a new problem. It's not an emergency. It's something we've failed to do, and that's what all our challenges are long-term problems that we just ignore until we have to deal with them. I would like to do it a different way, and I think I can with the county. I have the relationship with the supervisors and with staff and department heads there. A lot of people are reaching out to me because they see the need that we get ahead of some of this stuff and quit wasting time. We're just about out of time, and I'm ready to get to work on it immediately.
So this is what other issues are the most serious facing residents in the 3rd District, and what actions will you take during your first year in office to improve the situation on these issues?
The 3rd District issues include the public safety for Covelo and Laytonville and the outlying areas. We're not really aware of how dangerous and unprotected they are, but they certainly are. When I go door to door, these nice older women have rifles and pistols laying around the living room because they actually have to defend themselves, and the sheriff said he will not be there for a few hours. Our present sheriff officer in Covelo gets paid $5,000 a year extra, and he'll be leaving. And once again, we're without that officer. So that's a crucial problem for those people. Also, water planning and the Brook Trail's wildfire danger are huge. The potential second access is a number of years away, but planning for it's important, and informing those people about the wildfire danger has been one of my focuses in the campaign going door to door. talking to those people up there, that's one of their most important issues. Then working on Willits after the bypass. I've been working with the downtown specific plan for a number of years. The plug was pulled on that by the council, and now we're back on, once again, late in reacting to a real problem. When the bypass comes, we're going to need to have some kind of attractive downtown, and we're working on it right now. And the rebuilding of our failing infrastructure with the roads and bridges and problems we have. So to get real job growth, we'll need to have the job growth to answer any of these problems because they all involve money and a healthy economy. So I have the skills that we'll need to move this forward. Thank you.
So I think that another one of the significant challenges facing the county, and there's many. I mean, this is a time of great change, but I think that another one of the key issues facing the county is economic development. Revenues have been pretty much flat for the past few years, and the existing board and of supervisors have done really a lot of cutting. They've cut the budget down to the bone and gotten it to a more even keel, but the revenue side is really where we need to be looking. We need to be supporting local business. We need to be encouraging business development in Mendocino County, and I think we could do more of that than we have. Here at the City Council, I actually took the lead. I believe it was last year. I came up with a mayor's initiative to work on encouraging local manufacturing. We have a lot of very smart people. We have entrepreneurs in our area, but many of them get caught up in the regulatory system. So what we did is we gathered a group of volunteers and came up with a spreadsheet that would list the available manufacturing properties in the Willits area, including who the relevant contact information is. When I think about our area, I think of there being lots of vacant properties, but often people don't know who the decision maker is for that property. So we came up with a spreadsheet that would list that would list whether or not it was in a fault zone, whether or not it was in a floodplain, other factors that a business owner would need to do to move forward. And really that partnered with having a staff that's professional and accessible and wants to help. That's how we become more business friendly. And the county has a great deal of opportunity to make that happen. I want to make sure that the people in the county offices are there to help, not hinder. I've talked to too many folks that were trying to start a food truck and got a different answer every time they went into public health, or that were trying to start a light manufacturing business and got caught up. So we need to streamline that process and get rid of some of the bureaucracy.
So our next question is something that Tom went into a little bit, but we'll go into it hopefully in more detail. And it deals with Willits after the bypass, the Little Lake Valley after the bypass, Brook Trails after the bypass. And what will you do as supervisor to address these issues that come up as the bypass is completed?
Once the bypass is complete, we really need to be ahead of the curve. And I'm going to disagree with Tom. Our community is pulling together. We're pulling together right now to get planning on the ground before the relinquishment process. That's really the deadline. And there's been a lot of community input on this in the past, but I think that, frankly, this project has been going on as long as I've been alive. And I think that there was some doubts about the immediacy and when it was actually happening. So I've also been working with the merchant groups and the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that our local business is protected. I've spoken a lot about my support for that, but in relation to the bypass, we really need to make sure that the interchanges do not become sprawl and suck the investment dollars out of our downtown. We need a strong supervisor on that board to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that's going to be me. Also, the Brook Trails second access, this was an issue 4 years ago when I ran for supervisor, and it has not moved down the goalpost. The Brook Trails residents, Brook Trails residents pay a great deal of property taxes. They pay into county coffers, and I feel like they're not receiving the services back in terms of making that project happen. And it is expensive. We need to downscale our ideas of, I don't think we can afford a Cadillac project, but we need a second access at Brook Trails, and we need to make progress on that issue.
These issues aren't new. We've been avoiding working on them for quite some time and arguing about other things. But Willits will get a downtown-specific plan together because it's being driven now by the citizens and the business owners in town. If you're familiar with it, they've lost patience with government. They realize they're going to be the ones hurt by it, and they are very actively making it happen. So the Chamber of Commerce is coming with it. The city is certainly allowing this process to happen because that's where the energy is coming from. It's from private citizens, and that's where I think we're headed in the future, is less government rescuing us from things and us paying more and more taxes for what we think is not good enough service, and citizens taking responsibility, becoming involved, becoming informed, and patiently working the process forward. It does take years to make progress on anything. In real estate, I probably have more patience than any other realtor in this town. A lot of the deals, I just closed one that took 3 years to work on. People change their mind, people die, everything happens. But if you're looking for the long term, it works because you're applying that same philosophy to everything, not spotting it on just emergency things that pop up day to day, but looking at everything. Every decision you make has a long-term effect, and the sooner you make a clear decision and start working on it, you really can't be stopped. But it takes some maturity and drive to make this happen. Little Lake Valley is going to have to get it together as far as some visual and noise issues out in the valley once the bypass opens, and that would be fun to plant redwoods. Brook Trails, of course, with their fire danger, I am promoting that to keep the emergency accesses open and inspect them and take all the officers out there. So I'm working on it already. Thank you.
So county government is the largest provider of mental health and substance abuse services in Mendocino County. What would you propose to combat the problems of teen abuse of marijuana and alcohol? Do you think the county is doing enough on mental health? And what would you do differently on mental health, if anything?
County government has outsourced mental health, and it's an experiment to see how little energy we can put in and how little money and still get an acceptable product. The product today is not acceptable. There are crisis managers who are responsible for over 60 people, and it's just not a sustainable program. It's going to take the supervisors and the department heads engaging and negotiating and advocating for these people who are in stress situations. If you have one place for somebody to cool off just a little bit, they can calm down just with a night, and you're not shipping them around the state and spending a ridiculous amount of money. But it takes tremendous focus to work on these issues. It's not going to a meeting, going through a process, having a conversation, and assuming something's happening. It's doggedly working on the issues and making them happen and listening for every hint of a clue to put something serious together, and that's not what we have in government today. We don't have it here at the city, and it's going to get better at the supervisors level too. We can do much better, but it takes focus. Mental health is one of the things I feel most strongly about, and I will engage on it, and I will make a difference on it because it's too important to let it slide.
I don't think that we're living up to our responsibilities in the area of mental health. I don't think Mendocino County is meeting our mandate to provide those services. And since the privatization, I mean, I understand why they went that way because, you know, they were facing a significant budget shortfall. But it's time to reevaluate how well that is working, because when I'm speaking to people, it's not. I was just yesterday doing a walk a day with some in-home supportive care service workers, and I spent time with 2 families, and one of the ladies has been, you know, she's confined to her home. She has a home care worker that comes in, but she has mental health service needs, and the service that she was receiving in the past has declined drastically. And so she's not getting the services that she used to be able to get. And I read the report from the Ortner Group, and it talks about crisis centers that I have people that say that those crisis centers don't actually exist. You know, over on the coast, that there's supposed to be someone there, and they, you know, the regular Joe can't find them. We need to solve those issues. And I think it's going to take some careful analysis to make that happen, because what happens is that when we don't have those services, the first contact ends up coming down to law enforcement or, other service workers that aren't necessarily the best prepared to handle that, aren't necessarily the best trained. And certainly when it comes to sheriff's department work, sheriff's deputies, if they're needing to spend 4 or 5 hours sitting, waiting with someone at the ER that's having a crisis, that is an extreme cost both to that individual and to the county. I have more to say on alcohol and drug abuse, but I'll do that later.
Do you think that the county retirement system is in financial trouble? And if you do think that, how would you fix it?
I do, and this has been an area that I've been doing a lot of work in, and it's a very complex area. And actually, just this morning, I was down at the retirement board meeting, and the board voted to lower the target rate of return. I don't want to get too far into it, but if you can imagine that if you expect to get a very high return on your investments, and this is what has in the past been happening at the county, and you don't meet that return enough of the time, then it's going to be imposing more debt on the county, which is the plan sponsor. And so I think that that's a step in the right direction. It's going to be a painful step because it's going to add dollars, that the county needs to spend and that the retirees need to spend to make sure that their plan stays whole. But this is an area that the debt is now, I believe it's the unfunded pension debt is about $250 million at this moment. And if you think about interest and what it's going to take to pay that back, it's a significant impact to our local county. And I'm guessing that we're all going to have to make sacrifices in order to make that, to meet that obligation that the county has to its employees. My biggest criteria is making sure that we provide the benefits that we've said that we would do for our county employees. So I want to make sure that the county is fiscally healthy in order to be able to do that.
We definitely have a challenge in this area, and if you think government is not good at dealing with other challenges, this is a particularly difficult one for them. Just lowering that target rate means that we're going to have to put up money that we don't have, and so the whole leadership of the government is fighting that decision. I've been to the retirement board meetings, and they're very intelligent people. They've shaken it up a lot over the last number of years, hired a bunch of new people, new representatives. I have a lot of respect for their intelligence. There's some brilliant people on that board, and they're baffled as far as how to solve it. We've looked into it. It's going to take a lot of work. Even if we each paid $500 a piece, say, everybody in the county, every man, woman, and child, it wouldn't put a dent into what we owe. And we're not willing to pay that to retired people for service that we've already had or we're not getting. But I think we all agree that we want to keep our word to all those people. Everybody feels that responsibility. This is a big problem. It's going to be an ongoing one. What government does is bounce around. They hit something, they make a commitment, then 6 months later or the next budget year, they don't follow through. There's no consistency, and that way this won't be solved and none of our other problems will either. We have to make serious decisions when you look at everything at once, compare them and get your priorities like we do in our homes, and then stick with those plans. Bouncing around to get elected or meet some need or to have people not be mad at you is not a productive way to govern. So I expect people to be very mad at me. I'm excited about this job. It's exactly what I want to do, and the retirement board will be, if we can make a 10% dent in it in the next 4 years, that'd be a huge success. I have a lot of patience for long-term challenges, and that's what we're going to need, is long-term vision and short-term hard work right now.
So if you are elected supervisor, what can you and the Board of Supervisors do to improve the current slate of policies that cover county employees? And do you recognize that there are problems in this area?
Yes, I do. The morale at the county is very low at this point, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed. One of the things that's become apparent to me over the past couple years is a separation between the staff and the CEO's office. the CEO's office has continued to have a lot of control, a lot of sway over the policies of the board, and I think a lot of influence on the board. And I'm really concerned. I think the relationship between the board and the county's employees has been eroded over time because of this, especially in dealing with the recession, when all the employees got a 10% cut. You know, many employees left the county or you know, were let go from the county, and so the people who are left, a lot of people are doing, you know, 3 people's jobs in one, and so they're exhausted, they're somewhat demoralized, and I really think that we need to rebuild that bridge. We need to rebuild the trust, and between the board and that really can only be done, frankly, with action rather than, it can't just be words. It can't just be platitudes. And I am absolutely interested in trying to bring the employees back. You know, they were requesting a 3% restoration. They don't see it as a raise because they took the 10% cut. You know, this is thought of as a restoration back towards where they were. And I'm absolutely willing to explore that option. The other thing, I do want to mention that the answers to the questions, Ginger asked us to write them down, so I have copies of my answers to the prepared questions here if anyone wants to read them. But the other thing I know that we need to do is deal with the employee turnover rate, and we really have an incredibly aggressive turnover. We need to figure out how to keep those employees here that we're investing in and make sure they stay in Mendocino County.
A lot of hard work was done. There were 1,500 employees, and when the downturn hit, through attrition and not brilliant planning, we got rid of about 1/3 of our employees. So it wasn't thought out of how that affects little groups that work together. It was just whoever had other opportunities, whoever could retire, whoever couldn't take it anymore just fled. And what's left is a very confused, demoralized group of people. We all agree on that. It's going to take a lot to rebuild that and reorganize it, and so far that's not the will of the supervisors. They are distancing themselves. If you were the employees and we're the supervisors, we don't deal directly with you. They pay $250,000 for somebody to come in and negotiate the contract. The first thing I would do is put the $250,000 on the table and say, well, we know we can give you this much money. I'm here to negotiate with you. Let's see what else we can do together. We have to have direct communication. It's like raising your kids or keeping your marriage. You have to have the courage to face your biggest problems, and that means dealing with our valuable county employees. They must be very furious and discouraged at this point. A lot of them are reaching out to me, and that's what I like doing. That's my approach in changing government, is to talk to the employees. I've done it with the city here by dealing with the police, going to their union meetings, going on ride-alongs, working at the schools with the maintenance people, dealing from the ground up. Those people are amazingly smart. They work really hard. They understand more what's going on than the people at the top. And they have a lot of great answers, but nobody listens to them, and they're very frustrated. I can see you shaking your head. You understand. This is what we're going to demand from you as well, so get ready. Thanks.
So Mendocino County, as you probably know, is mainly reliant on energy produced outside the county. What can you do as supervisor to encourage and promote energy production here within the county?
People think promoting is just talking about things at meetings or advocating for it. That's really just a public show that doesn't do the hard work. Solar and biomass are really valuable things that we can do here. Every candidate at every forum agrees to it, but they don't do the projects very often because it takes some sacrifice, some commitment, and a little less money today for other things to get that benefit of the money coming in later. Willits is working on a project for that. The county should be working on a lot more projects. We have a lot of county buildings. Smart people, counties invest and use their rooftops, make all their buildings energy efficient, and make themselves safer and more secure by having their own power source. We need to do that here in this county. We used to be the solar capital of whatever, and now we do very little. Talk just doesn't cut it. We have to turn that talk into action. We all want similar things. Everyone in this group has some great ideas, But ideas and good intentions aren't what we need. We need to move those forward into reality and into our lives and for our kids. We're missing too many opportunities. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take different kinds of people with different beliefs, different assumptions about each other, and I think we share those here. To overlook those, move forward, and make some smart investments. And solar and biomass will be brilliant for our county.
So I agree that we need to have people in office that can get things done and not just talk about those, not just talk. And that's what you're going to get with me. I've already been focusing on this issue, and I mentioned this at the beginning, that local government does require an ability to deal with a lot of different issues and to become certainly not an expert. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that I'm that, but, certainly become conversant in a lot of different issues. And what I've done on the energy issue is I was supportive and partnered with Supervisor McCowan and Hamburg to get the PACE program started at Mendocino County. This was a property assessed clean energy, which was basically a funding mechanism. This was a way in which local government could help its residents to help themselves. So this was a funding mechanism that would allow you to do solar on your house and to assess that on your property taxes. That project alone is predicted to inject $55 million into our local economy when it's up and running. So that's something that I supported at the county, and I supported it here at the city of Willits, and we were able to pass that. Councilmember Ornstein is helping spearhead an additional solar project. Since I've been on the council, we were able to get solar at the water plant, and now we're taking it on to the wastewater plant and other facilities. We're really doing a lot in this area, and we can do more, because really, energy independence and diversifying our energy availability is not just, it doesn't just make economic sense, but it also helps us be more prepared for an emergency. I mean, it doesn't take much to make the lights flicker and or go out in our area. And the more people that have either community aggregated solar in their neighborhoods or just individual different things on their house, the better. And I've also been following the work that Ruffy's been doing. The Redwood Forest Foundation has been doing some really exciting stuff in this area to work on small, portable biomass plants that can help reduce undergrowth in our forests while providing energy. So that's exciting as well.
What can the Board of Supervisors do to improve employment within Mendocino County, and what will you do during your first year in office if elected?
The Board of Supervisors does not create jobs. For all the talk and agreement and the desire for jobs, our county has consistently lost jobs over the last 30 years. Something's not working. There are very few opportunities for our young people and new county residents, and the first thing we have to do is retain the jobs we already have, which means not outsourcing more things like mental health. It's not a logical thing to do to get rid of your trained county staff thinking you're going to save money, letting somebody else handle it and not being responsible for the results. We'll have to pay that money anyway if they don't meet the requirements. It's an illusion. It just doesn't make any sense. If we want local jobs, we have to retain the ones we have, and we need business to get out of the way of entrepreneurs. We have so many requirements. This is the hottest issue in every election for supervisor. Nothing changes. There gets to be more and more control and negative energy put out to new people trying to do something. Saying you want it is just the first step. You have to change it, and I intend to make a difference in this. It's the planning and building department. It's the attitude of the supervisors. It's saying we really do have to have jobs or we're not going to have anything. I want to protect our rural way of life. I don't want it to change into some crazy place. But we have to have some jobs here, and it's going to happen. The longer we hold it back, then it's just going to hit us like a flood. That's what happened to the south of us as far as you want to drive. We need to plan it. We need to do it. We need to have some courage and get jobs for our kids in this county starting now, and I'm going to make that happen if I'm elected.
I'm going to disagree, and I think this is because I'm an optimist, but I am seeing things that are happening around Mendocino County that are improving the job network. And just one example of that is Factory Pipe down in Ukiah. They make mufflers for Polaris that do like four-wheelers and Sea-Doos, those sort of things. And they have more business than they know what to do with. I mean, they are really running a tight shop and providing those jobs. They have challenges finding qualified local employees that are willing to do that work, but those jobs do exist, and we can do more to support that. I've already talked about the red tape at the county, and I think that that's something that we can really streamline because frankly, people get different answers to the same question depending on who they talk to, and we need to make sure that we're helping that situation, not hindering it. Another issue that hasn't really been brought up is, I'm a big supporter of local agriculture, FFA, and vocational programs in the schools. That's absolutely key to make sure that those kids have the skills when they graduate to be able to join the workforce, because we do have a lot of really smart people here. Additionally, pretty much as soon as I get into office, I'm interested in commissioning a study on the economic impacts of legalizing marijuana. We know that marijuana has a huge impact on our local economy, and I need to know, in order to make smart policy decisions, I need actual data, not anecdotal information. So an economic analysis will be very helpful to help us figure out how we're going to prepare as a county for that potential economic impact.
All right, so that was it for the prepared questions. We'll take a couple questions from the floor.
All right, we have a microphone here that we can bring to you, since you want questions from the floor, or not. But if you have the microphone, you will be on the TV.
I would like to know, what do you see as the relationship between the CEO and the Board of Supervisors being?
That's a great question. Right now, the relationship is the CEO does all the hard work, and the Board of Supervisors takes the credit and avoid any blame they can. It's a great model, and it worked for them when they were cutting all the jobs because they didn't want to hear the screaming and the crying. But it really doesn't work. It's like hiring somebody else to raise your children or accomplish your goals for you. Nobody knows your goals better than you do. It's difficult because they've given up that power to the CEO, and there will be a struggle that goes on. I have no idea how that's going to work out. I would be one of 5 people dealing with that challenge. But first you have to recognize what's going on and what the facts are and what's not working about that system and try to fix it. I think I can do that. That's what I try to do, is make good decisions.
I did address this somewhat when I was discussing about the relationship between the CEO and the board. I do think that there has been, I think the board has, willingly or not, or knowingly or not, seceded some of their authority. And I do think that at times there has been times where they have enjoyed that ability to have the CEO make the hard decision and not, to have that buffer. So we need to make sure that staff and the supervisors are communicating, that those lines of communication are open.
This question is especially for Tom. Holly, you can answer it too.
Thanks.
Tom, you've mentioned several challenging problems that have not been resolved by our supervisors, and yet you are really proud to be endorsed by 2 of those supervisors. So how do you reconcile this? How would we think that you wouldn't just continue those policies that you're so critical of?
Great question. It makes the assumptions. You said 2 supervisors. I think only Johnny's announced his endorsement for me, but I do feel very welcomed by the others. But mainly what they're looking for is people with critical thinking ability and courage to work on problems. This isn't enough time to answer the questions. When someone endorses you, it doesn't mean you're going to become like them. It means they see your strengths and they would like you to be in versus your opponent.
I think just to address that question, I have really excellent working relationships with pretty much all the existing board members and past board members. We have a past supervisor here in the room with us today. But a vote for me is going to, how do I put this? A vote for me is not a vote for the status quo. If you're fine with how things are, if you don't think that they could change or improve, I'm going to be bringing my energy and my experience, and it's going to be different than Johnny. I have a great deal of respect for him, but the fact is that if you don't want to vote for the status quo, then you're going to be voting for me.
This is a question for both of you. Recently, Sheriff Tom Allman and his department have come under fire for allegedly allowing illegal and unconstitutional raids on medical marijuana patients and gardens. Comet and the Mendocino Marijuana Task Force have been linked to the raids, and both agencies are under Allman's jurisdiction. If you are elected supervisor, how will you keep Sheriff Allman accountable for the actions of county law enforcement agencies and officers? If the Sheriff's Department continues to be linked to illegal operations, what actions will you take?
I've been really concerned about the impact of people's rights. We're talking about people dropping out of the sky, no warrants. When they're asked for identification, it's not being given. And I have not been satisfied by the response from the sheriff. Now, in terms of how to move forward past that, it's going to take more than 30 seconds.
Sheriff Allman is endorsing me. That doesn't mean that I'm going to agree to what he says because he's Sheriff Allman. He knows he's in for a struggle, but he needs help. He's walked a fine line to try to meet all our needs of allowing a lot of marijuana growth and keeping a lid on it too. So he's done a good job, and he's being reelected by a landslide. Nobody's going to run against him, but he's not perfect, and he needs an ally who can stand up to him and make him accountable. There are mistakes being made.
Measure S proposes a couple of things, including a ban on fracking. In the event that Measure S passes, some people have speculated that it might be challenged in court. Supervisors Hamburg and Jurdy have proposed an ordinance that would ban fracking in Mendocino County, but they did not have a third vote to pass that ordinance at the Board of Supervisors level. If you're elected, would you provide that third vote?
I would. I think fracking is great. The community rights thing is a great idea, and it's how we're going to move forward and get government more run by citizens. But this is kind of not the most crucial item we pick because we're not going to frack here, but I predict it will pass by quite a strong margin, and yes, I would have voted as the third vote. Am I out of time? Still time.
Let's just say that this wasn't Joe's decision as far as
Yeah, sorry
the
about
amount
that.
of
I think
time.
there's been some confusion.
It has to do with, I think we want to make sure that we get a chance to hear from Mr. Galletti. Thank you for being here, and thank you guys for putting this on. This is great. Okay, yes, I would have been the third vote to pass the anti-fracking ban at the county. I was in the primary. I was the only candidate that came out forcefully against fracking. You know, there was 4 of us at that time, and I was the only one that came out against it. I was part of the crafting of Measure S, and odds are it will be challenged in court, and that's actually part of the point. It has to do with who has the right to make local decisions. Who has that right? We do. Thanks.
I understand that public banking has come before the Board of Supervisors. Can you define it, and would you support it as supervisor for the Mendocino County?
Public banking is a great idea. I would support it. We have some great banks here that are locally owned already. We do have access to money for projects. What we don't have is the projects to move forward. But yes, I'm a supporter of public banking if it's properly organized.
A good resource for this is the Bank of North Dakota, I believe it is. If you go online, you can find out more information than I can say in this couple seconds. But I'm definitely supportive of public banking if we can figure out a way that it means that Mendocino County gets to retain more of our investment dollars and that it benefits us and avoids the drastic fluctuations of the traditional banking system. So I am in support of that.
Hi there.
Hi.
You both have spoken about what's not working in local government. I'd like to ask you, how have you arrived at your viewpoints? And have you engaged the feedback from the very personnel that provide the services for which you're being critical of?
Yes, I have. I've been doing a great deal of communication with county employees, for example, and I do have some strong views on, regulations, for example, building permits, things like that. But I've also had the experience of going into the county and asking for a reassessment of my taxes. I'm also a citizen, and I've had really positive experiences working with our county and had them be incredibly responsive. And I'm going to continue to have that open door policy of communication.
Absolutely, and that's where I see so clearly that local government is not working. It's not working for the employees, it's not working for the public. And it's hard to change it without a deep commitment from the public to get involved. I've been to meetings for years and years, and the public isn't here except on issues. We need to get involved. That's the missing ingredient to make public government work better, is you.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for bearing with all the confusion.
No, you did
No,
a great job.
that's fine.
Thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you guys for coming. Does Warren have to sit up here by himself?
Oh, that poor guy.
He's not by himself.
That's true.
I'm here.
And you guys are going to sit next to each other. That's good.